Hello, dear students. Welcome to part 2 of the video series on traditional security and cooperation. Uh, uh, so, mm, in this video, we are going to discuss about the need of cooperation in combating traditional security. We will also discuss about non-traditional concept of security, and then in the end, we will discuss some of the new sources of threat to the world and to us, and we'll discuss the first one, that is terrorism. The rest will be covered in the subsequent videos. So in traditional security, we recognize that cooperation can limit violence. So if people cooperate with each other instead of competing with each other, then we can limit the prospect of violence. So we do not say that countries should not go to war. We agree that countries will need to go to war, but we limit the number of reasons. So we only allow countries to go to war for self-defense or to protect other countries from genocide. Correct? So for example, if tomorrow some country, for example, Nepal decides to attack India, then India can go to war with Nepal, but only for self-defense. Correct? Nepal is an ally. Like if you want a more realistic example, it can be India, Pakistan, or China. Correct. Then also we can go to war to protect other countries from committing genocide. So you might know about the 1971 Bangladesh war. So India went to war with Pakistan to liberate Bangladesh. The reason for this was to prevent genocide in Bangladesh under Pakistan rule. So that was also justified. Also, armies must avoid killing or hurting non-combatants as well as unarmed and surrendering combatants. So there should be no mindless killing. Violence should only be used against armed army personnel. People who surrender or civilians should not be hurt. And force, that is violence, must only be used when all the other alternatives have failed. So, for example, right now India and Nepal having a border dispute, and China and India are also having a border dispute. So, the logical way of dealing with this is to first go with diplomatic talks, economic pressure, cultural pressure, political pressure. Army or use of violence should be the last resort. So there are various forms of cooperation. So first is disarmament, second is arms control, and third is confidence building. In the next slide, we'll discuss them in detail. So first is disarmament. It means that every state will give up certain kind of weapons. So the biological weapons convention and chemical weapons convention. So both biological and chemical weapons are banned. Why? Because these weapons are highly cruel. No, they'll torture people, and they also destroy the neighboring areas. So it's not only that the people die, but also the upcoming future generations, civilians, flora and fauna, everything is destroyed. That's why we have banned these kind of weapons. Why? Arm control requires regulation of acquisition or development of weapons. So we have not banned nuclear weapons. Various countries have nuclear weapons, but it's very difficult for a new country to get nuclear weapons. Those old countries which already had nuclear weapons, they can keep them, but new countries face a lot of problems if they try to get nuclear weapons. So the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty or the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT), these are examples of arms control treaty. Third is confidence building. So confidence building is a process. Okay. So in this, countries will share information and ideas with their neighboring and rival countries. So, for example, if tomorrow India decides to conduct some army training exercise, then it will tell that to China. So, China does not misunderstand or misperceives its India's goals. For example, if tomorrow India moves security forces near China border, China might feel threatened and attack India. So if we tell China beforehand that we are doing it as part of a routine exercise, then it helps to build confidence. Now, next slide, we'll move on to non-traditional notions of security. So till now we discussed about the traditional notions, that is security from military threats. Now we'll talk about non-traditional notions. So they go beyond military threats and they include wide range of threats and dangers. So what are they? So they need security for not just the state but also individuals or communities or even all of humankind. So they have also been called human security or global security. So human security is about the protection of people more than the protection of states. So for example, if a country, for example, it's a poor country and it decides to invest heavily in getting armed forces and armed capabilities, it buys a lot of weapons, buys a lot of planes, missiles, but it is left with very less money to feed its people, to provide them job and education. Then of course those people will not feel secure. They will feel threatened from uh, poverty, hunger, disease, correct? So human security covers all those things. And if you go back to last 100 years, more people have been killed by their own governments than by foreign countries. So, for example, cultural revolution in China under Mao Zedong, billions of people died. Stalin also killed billions of people. Then Hitler, he also killed billions of their people. And all these people were killed by their own government. So this also is an issue which we need to discuss. Now, proponents of the narrow concept of human security, that is traditional security, narrow. So it's a very narrow view of security. They talk about violent threats to states, while proponents of the broad concept of human security, they argue that threat agenda should include hunger, disease, and natural disasters. So, the state must also protect its people from hunger, from disease, and natural disasters. So, recently we had the Amphan cyclone in the eastern parts of India. So, there were a lot of problems, and like it was the responsibility of the state to protect these people. Also, in its broadest sense, human security agenda should also discuss about economic security and threats to human dignity. So, for example, in India we have something called the Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So it provides 100 days of labor guarantee to people. So they have a job for at least 100 days of a year. They have a job to earn money, and also threats to human dignity. So you might have heard that a lot of northeastern people were harassed in North uh, India, particularly in Delhi. They called them Chinese and all. So that is a threat to their human dignity. They are also humans like us. Even calling Chinese people as coronavirus is a threat to human dignity. We cannot humiliate other humans. So that is again a threat to human dignity. So the idea of global security, it emerged in 1990s as a response to threats like global warming, international terrorism, and health epidemics like AIDS. So global warming is not something that one country can fight alone. International terrorism is also something which we need to fight together. And health epidemics like AIDS and currently coronavirus, no single country can fight this. All countries need to cooperate and fight these security threats. Also, one country may have to proportionately bear the brunt of a global problem. So countries which are island nations, so for example Indonesia. Indonesia is more threatened by global warming than countries like China or Nepal. So these problems are not equal, and that's why we need to discuss about them and work on them. Now, uh, so we are finished with discussing non-traditional notions of security. So again, I will help you recall. So under non-traditional notions of security, we discussed about so like in the most narrow sense, it's about security to individuals. So if one particular person is not getting a job or not getting education, not getting or they are feeling threatened by violence by other humans or groups, then that is the narrow sense. In the broad sense, we talk about communities and groups of people who are threatened by uh, hunger, epidemics, all that. And its broadest sense, we talk about economic justice. So people should have jobs, should have houses, should have a decent salary. They should be able to support and sustain themselves. And also, people should live a dignified life, particularly in India, which has a history of social inequalities like caste. So lower caste people were not treated fairly by upper caste people. Minorities like Muslims and Christians feel threatened sometimes. I'm not saying all the time. They feel threatened inside India. Sometimes people are lynched because of their food habits. So these are all examples of social inequality. Now, after all this, we'll move to new sources of threats. So, like threats which have come up in the last 30 to 40 years. So, first is terrorism. So terrorism refers to political violence. So no, there is a specific type of violence. No, like somebody goes like crazy in their head and they like the serial killers. Serial killers will not be called terrorists because they don't have a political agenda. Terrorists have a political agenda. They target civilians deliberately and indiscriminately. So, for example, 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. So, terrorists from Pakistan they came to India and they attacked people indiscriminately. They were not looking at should I kill only Hindus or should I only kill men and should I spare children and women and children or we should not kill old people. They kill everybody equally indiscriminately because they use this violence against civilians to change a political context or condition that they do not like and they use force or the threat of force to accomplish this. So like for example Pakistan uses terrorism against India to weaken India and make sure that India is not able to capture Kashmir or all those issues. Now, civilian targets are usually chosen to terrorize the public, and then they use this unhappiness and fear of the public as a weapon against national governments or other parties in conflict. So, once the people will feel afraid of a particular threat, then they will tell their governments that please, like, don't engage with them, so let them go. For example, if some terrorists have been captured by a government, then there is other terrorists will threaten the people of that country to force their government to release these other terrorists. So this is the nature of terrorism. Also, classical cases of terrorism they usually involve hijacking of planes, planting bombs in trains, cafes, markets, and other crowded places. So recently you had the serial bomb blast in Sri Lanka. So like crowded places are targeted because maximum number of people can be hurt and fear can be instilled in maximum number of people. Hijacking planes is also like 9/11 attacks, planting bombs, again like Mumbai serial bomb blast. The most remarkable and most famous terrorist attack is the September 11, 2001 terror attack in USA on the Twin Towers. And after that, the public has paid more attention to terrorism. So as a new security threat. Now I'll end this video here. So in the next video, we'll discuss about human rights. So human rights are themselves not a threat to human security, but the threat to human rights is a security issue. This is something which we'll discuss in the next video.